Hello, welcome to Tier Nerd. This time I will do everything else. So these 10 games here are games that did not fit into any other tier list. So this is what's left over. So after doing this tier list, I would have tiered every single game I've ever played, with the exception of maybe a few RPG Maker games or a few games I might have beaten that I forgot about. But in total, it's probably close to 160 games, and many of them I've beaten several times. So yeah, I love JRPGs. So now it's these 10 games here. Some of them are really good, some of them not so good. So let's start with Arc the Lad. The Arc the Lad's D tier. Yeah, this game is probably one of the worst RPGs I've ever played. Um, Yeah, I don't have much to say. I beat it in one day. It took me about 6 or 7 hours, and I just didn't really find anything amazing about it. It's a strategy turn-based tactical RPG. The storyline is a little weird, and it was just kind of strange the way it was designed. I just couldn't really get into it, but it was short, so I ended up beating it all in one day. But yeah, D tier. Yeah, normally I don't rank games that low because if a game is this bad, I usually just don't finish it. I quit. But this game was short enough that I actually did finish it, even though it's pretty bad. So I haven't played any of the other Arctic Lads. Maybe they're better. I hear some people love the franchise, so maybe it is better. But the first game I played, no, it wasn't very good. Let's see. We have others now. Obviously, how could I forget Chrono Trigger? Like literally one of the first RPGs I ever played. After Pokemon Blue and Pokemon Silver, Chrono Trigger was one of the first games I ever played. And yeah, timeless classic, lots of nostalgia. I beat it many times. Yeah, loads of fun, great soundtrack, and yeah. But I think I'll put it in A tier for now. I mean, it was great, but I don't know. Like, I've played so many games since then, and so it's Chrono Trigger's competing against every other game I ever played. So that's why I'm not quite sure if I want to put it in S tier, but it definitely is at least A tier. Like, you can't really put it below A tier because it really is a timeless classic. I know some people might get mad that I didn't put it S tier, but I mean, I'm putting it in A tier for now. Now, some people are going to get mad about this too. Chrono Cross, Chrono Cross. I'll be nice. I'll put it in B tier. Yeah, Chrono Cross is definitely quite overrated. It's nowhere near as overrated as Undertale, but it is still a very overrated game. Chrono Cross. It has its moments. It can be fun, but the game's just kind of weird in a lot of ways. The characters are weird. Storyline doesn't really make any sense. Music's good. Music's good, but yeah, it's just a weird game. Battle system's kind of interesting. I'll give it that, but yeah, I don't really know what to say. Like, I just think it's a highly overrated game. It's kind of good, but yeah, it has definitely has its problems. And the cast of characters is just plain weird. To be honest, most of them are just useless. You don't even want them in your party. You got Surge, Glenn, and I don't know. There's not too many other good characters to use in your party. So yeah, you just have a lot of dead weight basically, and very repetitive battle system, kind of cheap. Um, it's either battles are either really easy or really hard. That's kind of how the game works. Since you can probably heal almost infinitely in this game. Let's see what else. Now we have Etrian Odyssey. This is this is an interesting game. I kind of want to put it in A tier. This is a game for masochists and hardcore lovers of dungeon crawlers. So Etrian Odyssey is kind of cool. Like, I like the music. It's a DS game. It's a dungeon crawler, and it's tough, and it's a fun tough game though. Like, you can prepare for the toughness. Definitely recommend using a guide. I used the guide, and it was still tough. think I put like 80 hours into it. And I played it on an actual DS, so I didn't even use save states. Normally for a tough game like that, I'd be using save states, but nope. I beat this on an actual DS, and yeah, it was tough. And I did all the side quests, beat all the optional bosses, everything. So it's, yeah, definitely use a guide, but yeah, it's fun. If you're a bit of a masochist, this is good. I never got around to playing the other Etrian Odysseys. At some point, I think I should, but it was a good introduction to the franchise. Let's see. Now what do we have? Parasite Eve. Parasite Eve, I think, is another game. I think I'd give an A tier to. Yeah, I even kind of put it above Chrono Cross even. Parasite Eve is it's kind of different. It's sort of like it's like an RPG where you use guns, and it's sort of active time and time based at the same time. It's like active and wait. Something anyway. Basically, it's kind of an interesting battle system. The game's super short. I think it's like 6 or 7 hours. I think maybe on a first playthrough, maybe it'll take you like 10 hours. Super short. Then you could do like New Game Plus and like level up, and there's like a side quest dungeon and all that. So despite being a short game, it's really fun. Yeah, just really easy to play. Even though this isn't exactly my genre, I'm not really into horror. So the storyline and just the atmosphere of the game, the thematic material, it's not really my cup of tea. But I still thought it was a solid RPG. It's just a little different from the norm. Let's see. Then we got Fantasy Star. Fantasy Star, I think I seriously want to put that in C tier. I beat it. I never. I know the fans of Fantasy Star say Fantasy Star 4 is like the best, and I never got around to playing it. I just played the first one, and yeah, it's not that great. Like it's kind of. I beat it, but it's kind of generic and just nothing that great about it, to be honest. It's a dungeon crawler, and yeah, it's just kind of bland, but kind of different. Um, but I never really saw the appeal of it. I also played Fantasy Star 2, and it was more of the same stuff. So I just could not get into Fantasy Star 2. Like I just couldn't get into it. Like I played it for a few hours, a few dungeons. Maybe I should play the PlayStation version at some point, but I don't know. I couldn't get into it. Like in some ways, it felt even worse than the original Fantasy Star. So maybe the franchise is good. Maybe Fantasy Star 4 is really good, but I'm if most of the games are like Fantasy Star 1, then I don't. It doesn't seem like that's a franchise I'd like to play. So so far, my opinion of the Fantasy Star series isn't very high. Let's see. Then we have Radiant Historia. I seriously am considering putting this in S tier. Above Chrono Trigger. That might be very weird to do that, but this game is this game's really cool, to be honest. It's for DS. It has its flaws, but it's just very unique and amazing. Like a lot of games, some games like to do time travel, and anytime you do time travel, the storyline is just weird and it doesn't make sense, and then there's plot holes. But Radiant Historia takes a very interesting approach to the whole time travel aspect, and it's very interesting, very unique. You're just jumping between two different timelines, and the characters are interesting, the timelines are interesting, and you pretty much explore all of these like bad endings. That's basically what you're doing. You're going around playing the game and you're trying to activate all the bad endings until you finish the game with the good ending. So it's just very interesting, very unique game, and I just really liked it. The music and the battle system, and it's kind of simple in a lot of ways because the game is kind of old, but I thought it was great. And the composer, man, I might be getting the composer wrong. I think it was Shimomura. I think it was Yoko Shimomura that did the music, and well, she's a good composer. So yeah, they did the time travel thing right, actually. Unlike Chrono Trigger did it sort of okay. Chrono Cross just went crazy with the whole alternate reality thing. So Chrono Cross made absolutely no sense. Reading Historia doesn't actually handles it correctly. So yeah, I think I'll put it in S tier. Super Mario RPG. This game I would say is overrated. Um, it has its good points, but I seriously think it's overrated. Some people say it's S tier. Nah, I think B tier is fair. It's got its high points where it's very interesting, but it's I mean, because I'm not really into Mario and platformers and all that, but it was still a fun game despite that. So I didn't really like all the jumping and stuff I had to do, but as an RPG, it's pretty solid. The storyline's a little more goofy because it's Mario, it's not the standard RPG, and so yeah, it's a solid game, but just yeah, it just doesn't have all that stuff that I would look for in a serious RPG. So I think it's more of a B tier game for me. Let's see. Then we have Vagrant Story. So this is another one of those games that's like has a cult following where it's like S tier, amazing game. And then there's some people that hate it. Me, I don't know. I'm thinking B tier. Yeah, I think I'll put it in low B tier. I mean, Chrono Cross is probably better than Vagrant Story. Vagrant Story wasn't that good. I thought the battle system was kind of awkward. It's similar to Parasite Eve's battle system, actually, but Vagrant Story just handles it way worse. It's like combos and like timing attacks at the right time and all that, and it's kind of hard. Like a boss fight can be really hard, or it could be really easy if you have the right setup. And there's all this really confusing stuff about weapon crafting and all of this other stuff, and it's more about whether you win or lose battles is all about preparation, whether you're using your spells and your skills. Like this is another one of those games where you can't just press X, like you can't just button mash. Like that's not how you play Vagrant Story. So I do respect them for that, like that they made more difficult game, but it just like it has a cool atmosphere to it, and it has good music. Hitoshi Sakamoto is the composer, so he's a great composer, same guy that did Final Fantasy Tactics and actually Valkyria Chronicles as well. But yeah, so it's a pretty good game, and got good music, decent storyline, but like just kind of it can get monotonous and tedious. Like this game can get very monotonous and tedious. I didn't do any post game stuff. I just beat the game and I just called it a day basically. So I think low B tier is pretty fair in how I viewed the game. Then we have Valkyria Chronicles. So Valkyria Chronicles, that is an easy S tier. Yeah, above Radiant Historia. So Valkyria Chronicles is a very unique game, different from any I've ever played before, and I enjoyed it a lot. Like this is probably one of the best games I've ever played. I think it qualifies as an RPG. It's just very different. Like it's like a strategy RPG, but it's in real time, and it's like an FPS, and you have anime, and it's just all sorts of stuff like put together. It's a lot of genres mixed together. Like I said, it's like an FPS real time strategy with turn based strategy, and it's anime, like all put together. Like it just works. Like I hate shooting games with guns and tanks and all of that. I don't care for that stuff. Like Halo, and I'm awful at those games. But Valkyria Chronicles is different. Like it has all that stuff, tanks and guns, and it mixes it in with a lot of stuff that I do like, and it creates this amazing game. Good storyline, interesting gameplay, good music. Toshi Sakamoto, same guy that did Vagrant Story and Final Fantasy Tactics. Great music. It's epic. Like this is an epic game. It's fun. It's epic. And I was being super like meticulous with how I played the game, and it just loads of fun. And every battle is different. That's the thing. This game doesn't get old. Like every battle, the objectives are different, and they put a lot of thought into how they design this game. You can tell it does not get repetitive, and so yeah, this is definitely This is a classic. I don't know like how high S tier. I don't know if it would be like top 10 games I ever played, but it's definitely a really good game. I was surprised I enjoyed it as much as I did. So yeah, I would highly recommend Valkyria Chronicles. I tried playing the second game, but I couldn't get into it. I was bored at the time. So maybe I'll play some of the other games at some point. If I had a lot of free time, I would probably play it again because this was just a really good game. So yeah, I think that's a good way to end the tier list with the awesome game. So that's it. I've tiered everything, and um, I think my next video, I think I'm gonna try anime this time. So I think I tiered all the games, and I'm gonna switch over to anime, and then there's plenty of anime for me to review.